I'm here with Leonard David from space.com, and you're here as a journalist covering STAIF 2006. So it's a pleasure to be able to interview you and get some of your thoughts on the conference.
Okay, well, it's I come here pretty much every year for quite a few years now, and it's a conglomeration of multiple conferences, which is I'm interested in almost anything that goes up, so it's good for me because it's got microgravity to space tourism to breakthrough propulsion ideas to also the status quo of where NASA and some of the Department of Energy folks are going or not going.
Sure.
And
well, that's really one of the things that makes this conference so unique is the diversity of ideas here.
Yeah, that's a good. There's not too many of these kind of conferences where you can come and it's pretty much free reign. I mean, I pick up a lot of early warning signals from different people, about trends that I will see reflected years from now and stuff. So that's for me. It's you got to keep your ears open here, but there are some flares that go off in different topics that I think if you're looking for stories, you'll find them.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of the stories that you're working up for this conference?
Well, clearly from the status quo is NASA itself. What type of ramifications or whatever is that a real word? I don't know. But whatever they're trying to pawn off now and as vision of exploration, and watching that. Going to the different sessions, you get somewhat of a patchwork view of where NASA thinks it's going. I walk away pretty troubled because I don't think they have a clue yet, but there's papers to be presented here and they'll explain different things. So, we're watching NASA grovel and grapple with budgetary issues and then technology problems to get Moon, Mars, and beyond.
Sure.
To be more than just rhetoric.
Yeah, the funding cuts, and I guess a lot of that's going towards the war effort, against terrorism. But
everything, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that seems to cut across the Air Force and a lot of the defense contractors as well as NASA. So.
Yeah, I mean it's again this conference you can walk in here and pretty much get a pulse of how good or bad it is. How well the patient's doing, and a lot of the oxygen tanks are over there for some of the contractors, and so It's good, but you can also walk away with a little futuristic things, space settlements or colonization or blue sky thinking. If everything goes the way people hope it does, here's what the options are for the future. So it's
sure
good stuff.
Well, what are some of your favorite topics to write about in this area?
Well, yeah, the NASA stuff. What they're planning. Space tourism I cover quite a bit, so I'm always interested in what the latest trends may be in passenger travel. Some of the breakthrough propulsion stuff is really fascinating. If I only got more than a C in physics, but there's definitely some new ideas there that are fascinating. I guess the other topic that's clear is power. I mean, that's one of the themes of this conference is power and propulsion. Nuclear power. Are we going to ever have it in the kinds of ways that some of these folks need it to pull off some of the larger missions? So that's always, and then faster missions. We're in a Conestoga wagon mentality the way the space program is set up now. It takes forever to do anything and go anywhere, and that's all going to fall. But it's painful to watch the tent poles fall, collapse, and we get going on things. So again, budget, like you said, budget. Yeah, but there's some real good trends in technology if allowed to mature. There's just no way we're going to be flying in space the way we do today. Why would that be?
Sure. It was interesting to see that there must have been, 6 to 10 RTG contractors with radioisotope power systems. So.
Yeah. They're here. They're typically always here, even in the bad news, good news days.
It seems like the Stirling Cycle is also kind of making a debut. I don't know how long it's been around for. The concept itself goes way back.
Right. Yeah. It's been talked about, and technology-wise, there's some demos, and there's some spacecraft. One spacecraft apparently has a Stirling on it, and I didn't even know that. So I learned something today. And so there's you know, there are things happening, but, you know, you get a little, it's painful to come every year and to watch the conniptions, you know, you'd like to have a time machine and kind of save some registration fee and move up like 25 years and see how well everybody did, but that's not going to happen. So you kind of have to pay your dues and come here and suffer, you know, with all the good news, the bad news, the media. Where is the news? Is it ever going to show?
Yeah.
But, you know, bottom line is, you know, the space has always got some surprises ahead, and I'm sure to me, the big kind of really interesting story is going back to the moon and really seeing it for the first time. I'm not sure we really saw it.
You mean in terms of the romantic vision clouding kind of the reality of it, right?
I think the political pressure to get there and, you know, throwing the last guy on the moon was a scientist. I mean, I don't think we really got into the exploration of the moon. And my guess is the moon's got some surprises. I think we're going to find early Earth on the moon. I think we're going to find some astrobiology potential. You know, if they don't know where the moon came from yet, and there's still disagreement, it's weighted on one side more than the other, but there still is open questions about where the moon came from.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's in our face, and we don't know what that neighbor is like.
You know, one of the things that was mentioned in the plenary session that really amazed me was, and again, it's something that we all probably know about, we just don't think about, was the dust on the moon, which is down to the molecular size.
Yeah, razor, and it gets in your suits, and you break down, and dust is not only on the moon, but Mars is the big issue too. You know, if you're going to have humans traversing across Mars and people worried about the dust, not only the size of it and getting into your suit, but also how toxic it is. Because if you got in and out habitats and people plumbering around on Mars, you know, you're going to be exposed to that stuff in some way.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, the dust issue is big, and but, you know, they're piecemealing this thing out, and we'll have robots go back to the moon. I'm just too old now. I've seen, you know, I went to the moon so many times, you know, it's like, okay, I'm ready, but, you know, Ranger and Surveyor and Lunar Orbiters and then Apollo, and here we are going to sort of revisit all that.
Sure.
We'll get a lot more out of it, I think, because of the technology that's changed, and also, you know, an open-ended question is at the poles, you know, with water ice, and if it's a resource we can use that's there, that does open up a whole other potential for exploration.
Absolutely. Well, do you think that the focus on heritage technologies, which I guess is much like the IT industry's return to core competencies after the dot-com crash, but do you think that may actually have some benefits to the contractors by allowing them to focus in on what they're really good at in terms of construction of technology?
Yeah, so adoption of technology to make new things happen, we got to learn how to incorporate those into missions and do bolder things, and after 40 or 50 years, I think we ought to be pretty savvy on why things work and making them work and making sure they work, and so but we'll see.
Well, one of the things I'd like to ask about is in terms of space.com itself, what can you tell us about kind of the direction of the organization in terms of providing media coverage?
Well, you know, I mean, Space.com started pretty much on the big explosive .com, you know, growth curve, and you know, Lou Dobbs was the originator of the idea, along with Sally Ride and a couple other key people. And the whole idea was to try to popularize space astronomy, get people interested in exploration.
Sure.
And so, you know, and then the .com era did what it did, and like all groups, you know, we had all kinds of you know, missteps a little bit, and people we should probably, you know, we had to let go and that kind of thing. So it settled down, but now it's been, the last few years, it's been growing again, and really has done pretty well. I mean, multimedia-wise, that was the goal, and they bought software company. Space News newspaper is one arm of ours from a print publication. The Space.com is profitable. People, you know, banner ads on there make a lot of money, so, you know, it's profitable. And also, they just bought Orion telescope, so we have a hardware segment of our agenda, and there's some other stuff that you can't talk about, but they're looking at numbers of other
some interesting
avenues.
new things then developing.
Oh, yeah, you got to, I think, to keep on top of this internet wave that we're all benefiting from, and exploring at the same time, trying to figure out what the benefits are.
Oh yeah.
Because I tell you, writing for the internet versus print magazine is somewhat scary. I mean, it's instantaneous. You're out there, and you got to be careful you don't have your pants down on some of these stories. You can get caught on not have enough time to get the details, but yet you're on internet time, so you kind of have to move along.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's difficult too, because a lot of the sources on the internet, then sometimes the credibility kind of.
Yeah, you got to tell you. I mean, I think we're all turning into like central intelligence agents. It's every morning I'm sifting through hundreds and hundreds of emails from all over the world, looking for trends or themes or messages or or verification of things that I've heard or something. So yeah, you get into a real synthesis when you're writing now of stuff.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that it says about the space industry in general, I guess from this conference at least, that while the contractors in NASA seem to be having some funding issues, that the Section F group, the Breakthrough Physics group, is expanding so rapidly?
Yeah. Well, it's expanding rapidly, but I think it's within its own little confine there. You're not sure, how much peer review check some of these people have, because some of the stuff is so esoteric.
Oh, yeah.
At least esoteric today. I mean, that's a good word that usually falters later on, decades from now. Everybody knew that. So, yeah, some of it's beyond me. I can't, but if anything, I'm good at. Reporter instinct leads you down to sit in front of some people that you may not understand everything they're saying, but boy, there's something about this that rings a bell in the back of your mind. You better watch this story.
Absolutely.
Watch this space. And I think physics-wise, there's so many things going on, way beyond my ability to understand them. But sometimes I look at the room and who's in there. If I'm only the one sitting there listening to the person, then it's suspect. But when there's a whole crowd of people taking notes, I'm going, well, there's something to this story.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you can tell by the body language of the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, now one of the things that's sort of tentatively being discussed is the possibility of media attention. Do you think that Space.com might partner up with that in the future in terms of broadcasting from the conference or from other conferences, perhaps?
Yeah, there's potential for that. We have, part of our Starry Night activities is we film different conferences and actually integrate those into our platforms on DVDs for some of the software sales. So, yeah, there's been some of that already where we've gone around and talked like you're doing, interview people and keep them, I do think that's one of the issues that the public misses, that maybe we have the advantage that we go to these conferences and actually see people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people watch a spacecraft take off and they see the countdown and it's gone. They have no idea how much angst went in there by humans and the troubles and all the problems and funding shortfall and this and that, and then to push the button on it and see it go. It's a huge human story of success and sometimes failure. It's pretty. I've seen both sides.
Yeah.
I've seen some great failures. I've seen some incredible successes.
Well, thanks again for your time.
Okay.
Again, Leonard David from Space.com, and we look forward to more of your stories in the future.
So do I.